Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. Today we are here to talk about the penultimate episode of Survivor 42, episode 12, Caterpillar to a Butterfly. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Stacy, the greatest person to ever live, and I'm joined by two people who are fairly high up on that list as well. Not as high as me, but still fairly high up. We have Derek Kubicek.
Happy to be back. Happy to be healthy.
Yep.
Happy that the Rona didn't take me.
No longer dead Derek Kubicek, who's back in person. He's not quite the same as he once was. But he's
Congrats
here.
on surviving.
I walked over the coals. Made it through, but not without a few scars.
And then we have Josh Wessler back. Again, he's not at an Elton John concert this time.
Hello, you can't get rid of me that easily. I don't have COVID quite yet.
Not yet.
He says
Yeah.
as he's just asymptomatic right now.
Yeah.
So we just watched episode 12, final episode before the finale. And man, oh man, I gotta say, I loved this episode. Loved it.
Yeah, it was really good all around. After it was done, I spent a minute trying to think, what was the theme of the episode? And it was kind of marred by these poles of self-awareness and at the same time, some opposite of self-awareness, so like self-obstruction, because we got a lot of really awesome confessionals from all the characters who
Except
seem,
Romeo.
except Romeo, right? But like, you know, Romeo notwithstanding, he doesn't count, right?
Yep.
Where everyone understands exactly where they are in the game. And I love when we get that, because it proves that everyone is truly thinking for themselves. And even though there were some decisions that may have been made that maybe go against that, I actually don't think so. So I think the theme of the episode was self-awareness, and I love to see it, especially in a penultimate episode, heading into what is poised to be a pretty open finale.
I don't know if I would necessarily agree that everyone seems to know exactly where they are just based on the way that they wanted to vote towards the end of the episode, but we can get into that later. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. It was kind of sad to see the person go who ended up going, but you know, sometimes things have to be done in order to win the game. So I completely understand. I'm a little confused as the way that the path that the editors took to get to this point, but you know, we'll see how it all culminates next week.
So we're going to be talking through this whole episode. So spoiler alert for the penultimate episode, episode 12. So get out of here. Go watch the episode, come back and listen to us. Okay. So the breaking news this hour is the person everyone thought was going to win, and Omer is out of the game. We are I don't want to say wide open, but we are way more wide open than we were going into this finale. Like, holy crap. This is huge. This is huge. This is the guy of the season. I still have him as the best player of the season so far. That hasn't changed yet, even now that he's out. It's just wild.
I would completely agree that he's still the best player so far of the season. And I said it 2 weeks ago when I made my new winner pick, that if Omer doesn't win the game, then there's something seriously wrong with the way that this season is being edited. Because I have no idea who's going to win now. There's no clues. I mean, there's a few different people, but out of 5, I don't know. And because it's wide open doesn't mean that that's a great thing. I would like to have a little bit stronger of an edit behind some of these people in order to be really confident saying, yes, I really like them as a winner. I'm glad they won. And you can do that to a few people, and I don't really feel that way with any of the remaining cast members.
I got to say I disagree with you, Josh. I mean, there's a couple people in the season, like, yeah, they're very under-edited, I'd say. Well, actually, I would just say Lindsay's the only one who's truly, I think, under-edited. I think everyone else has gotten the proper edit for where their games are at, warts and all. See, that's the big thing is I think all of these people are very flawed players, which is very fun to have 5 people who are not Survivor geniuses left in the game. So I think, Lindsay aside, I think they have appropriate edits for where their games have been so far.
And maybe that's the tricky part is maybe they're not necessarily under edited. They're just very imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so used to having, you know, really good, well-rounded people winning this game for the most part recently.
Sure.
So maybe that's where the feeling comes in a little bit more. Yeah, Lindsay definitely would be the one under-edited person, but I think that she has just as good a shot as any to still win this game.
She could win. And I think I strongly prefer this, having more flawed people in the end game than as like a Tommy from Island of the Idols or something like that. Someone who's just like, okay, they're going to win. Duh. And then last season, our winner was just completely under-edited, where unless Lindsay wins, I don't think that'll be the case. And even if Lindsay does win, she's gotten a stronger edit than Eric.
Slightly.
So it's no matter who wins, it'll be a more satisfying conclusion, I think, than 41 at this point.
I think emotionally speaking, you're right. It'll be more fulfilling.
Nothing against Erica. That's a shot at the editors of 41.
Yeah, and we all agree about that. My only point of contention that Ryan made was actually about a previous season. Going into the finale of 39, we all thought that Dean was going to win. So, it wasn't as cut and clear. In retrospect, that's one where if you let it simmer for a couple of years, you're like, yeah, Tommy was going to win. But watching that one live, the editors did kind of pull one over us.
A little bit,
So everything else I 100% agree with. I do think we will be more emotionally satisfied regardless this time around.
So let's jump into this episode, huh?
Absolutely.
So the thing that sets up this whole episode is with the advantage amulet, which is now an idol because Hai and Andrea are gone. Lindsay has the advantage amulet idol, but that one can only be played up to the final 6. The regular idols can be played up to the final 5. This one ends at the 6. So this is the last time Lindsay can play her idol. And that kind of sets the ticking clock for this episode.
Does anyone else find it a little weird that this idol can't be used as far into the game as the rest of the idols, especially since there's so much work that goes into converting it to an idol? I feel like it should be equal in that sense to the others.
So I think that's a case of because it starts off as an extra vote, then a steal a vote, and I just don't think they want any, because I think all the extra steal a vote stuff ends at 6 as well. I don't think they want that at 5.
Especially a steal a vote.
I think the producers don't want that to happen at 5, so they just blanket banned all of the amulet advantage stuff from 5 and make it end at 6. That'd be my guess.
And given that final fire making at 4 is still a thing, I wish they would have rolled all idols back to top 6. Another point I want to bring up is, this felt more of a climax of the season, but given who went home, we are going to get a true climax, I think, probably at 5 and 4 as well. So I think for the term, in terms of emotional satisfaction, we got the best outcome. I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I wish that they would roll all idols back to 6 if we have to keep fire making in the game. I've been literally saying that for years. You can go to my Reddit account and you can find that.
If we have fire for fire making, which we should not have, then idol should be done at 6. I agree. So I was fine with this. Omer gives Mike his idol back, which, some people are going to say he shouldn't have done that. Well, if you do that, guess what? You completely torpedo your chance of ever getting Mike's jury vote. You got to give the idol back. You can't, unless you're going to be a real a-hole, you got to give the idol back.
And that's not Omer's game either. You can't be the a-hole and have that be your story going into the end. And also, you could just be turned around and be voted out immediately after you use this idol this round.
I also think that, let's say he does send Mike home after not returning his idol to him. Mike would 100% sour that entire Ponderosa against Omer.
You could maybe do that in the pre-merge. You cannot do it now. It's too late for that.
Mm-hmm. So I am... okay, even in hindsight, with Omer leaving us tonight, this was the right move.
Yeah, you have to. So Omer's plan now is he wants to put a wedge between Jonathan and Mike and have the two of them go after each other. This does not work at all. Not even a little bit.
Great in theory, though.
Mike, on the other hand, now wants Omer out because he's like, Omer's the biggest threat. And I think Drea calling Omer out as she left last week did just all of the damage because everyone's like, oh, it's Omer. It's always been Omer. Uh-oh.
Which I would like to at least say, I feel like I kind of called that last week. Ryan tried to downplay it a little bit, but I wanted to call attention to it a little bit more.
And because I wasn't here, I feel the need to say it. If you get voted out, I hate the gut spill on the way out the door. It's legal. You're allowed to do it. It feels unsportsmanlike, and I didn't like it. So, Drea, I know you're a listener. Didn't really I liked your attitude, but I did not like the gut spill. You got played. Suck it up. Okay, but anyway.
So, Derek, you hate that. Josh Did you go on the record?
I landed on I'm okay with it, but I feel like everyone there's no way to really restrict this, but I feel like just as a game of good faith here, you get one. If you want to call out one person, be like, Omer's gonna win, and then just walk out. You don't need to go through 6 different people and say what their status in the game is for each and every single one of them.
Sure.
That's kind of just a little bit ego to me.
Well, Derek, if it helps my dad, and shout outs to my dad, he fully agrees with you.
Yeah, it just feels against the spirit of the game. You got. Stop trying to influence the game. You're in the jury now. I feel like the second, Jeff says, you've been voted out, your jury spot begins and you shouldn't be allowed to talk. But I get it. It's not against the rules. It's fine. You have to know that when you're voting somebody out. It's a consequence. You have to understand that. I still don't like it.
I have absolutely no problem with it.
I know you don't.
Whatsoever. I don't. It doesn't bother me.
Ryan's a big old anything goes fan.
Basically, when Survivor started, there was 2 rules. You can't conspire to share prize money and no physical violence. And obviously, we've added a couple of things, as society has progressed, we've added some stuff, which is fine. But gameplay wise, whatever, man.
Yeah, what it is, if anyone's ever played One Night a Werewolf, someone just added a hunter to the mix, know?
Yeah, Drea was the hunter and she took out Omer on the way down, which is hilarious. So Mike wants him out, and Marianne is also interested, and she tells Mike, hey, we could maybe do this. I have an extra vote, so we could maybe do this. Don't love that. Don't tell people you have stuff until we're coming up on Tribal Council time. Lindsay actually wants Jonathan out still because those two are still feuding, secretly feuding. It's that they're a real Cold War situation.
Yeah, and it almost just feels like Omer and Lindsay are okay, we need to whittle down on our Taku 4 because we're going to be seen as kind of a group, even though they played pretty fractured for the second half of the merge. So bring the people that you kind of dragged along. I imagine that they would get Jonathan out now and then try and target Mike and then just say, we played a better game than Marianne and Romeo. That's pretty clear. And then they would gun for each other at top 4.
Yeah, I think that's what their plan was. Jonathan no longer trusts Lindsay or Omer. Fair.
And it's one of the few times, and this is why I feel like self-awareness was kind of the main point, at least of the prelude or the setup of this episode, because Jonathan's I don't trust any of these people except Mike anymore, and for good reason, and he calls it out, and he gets it 100% right.
Jonathan had a couple of really good confessionals in the first half of this episode, really laying out where everything was in regards to him in the game, which I liked a lot.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that.
Not much from that.
Oh, Jonathan Winner at it.
Reward challenge. Omer ends up winning, and the choice here is you get to choose some healthy, nutritious food or dessert chocolate cake, which they did last season, but they added a little twist to it, which I actually really liked. With the healthy food, you're allowed to bring 2 people with you. With the dessert, you're allowed to bring 3 people with you. So it makes it more of a difficult choice.
I liked it. I loved it, actually.
This is good. This is one of the few good tweaks they've had this season.
Yes.
And it's a tiny tweak, but it's the perfect tweak because we said it last season. There's zero reason why you should pick any of the sweets versus the sustenance. There's no reason for it. So, but adding that extra person, I don't know. I still don't know what I would necessarily do in this situation. I think it completely depends on who's in the game and who you're aligned with. But man, it's tough. It is tough just leaving 2 people alone on the beach. So I feel like I might still lean towards the healthy side and go for the sustenance.
But with Omer, I think he played this perfectly because he left the 2 people who are feuding and gunning for each other
and guaranteed not to work together.
The people. So I love this move. If there's 2 people staying behind, you pick you leave the 2 people behind that are least likely to work together. I think that's the move, and I think Omer played that brilliantly.
And plus, he followed my standard rule where you leave your number 1 ally on the beach, so at least you've divided those resources. So I loved everything. I thought Omer played it perfectly, especially Survivor having not done anything like this before.
Yeah,
where it was one or the other, more or fewer people.
Yeah, this is really good. This was a good one. I like this one. Bring this one back. This is a good twist. Okay, back at camp, Lindsay tells Mike that, hey, you're probably the backup after Jonathan. So if Jonathan wins immunity, could be you, Mike. It's not going to come into play, but, So Mike tells Jonathan, and then the other thing that gets brought up is Mike realizes, wait, your amulet has turned into an idol now. So Mike needs to gather resources to make a move here. So he's going to tell Jonathan and Marianne about the fact that Lindsay is an idol that is done at the final 6. And so they were talking about taking out Omer. So they're like, all right, Lindsay cannot win immunity because if she does, she will give the idol to Omer. So We cannot let Lindsay win the immunity. Lindsay's going to win immunity.
Yes.
And this is where we see Marianne kind of have that moment of realization of, oh, Lindsay didn't tell me that she had an idol. Maybe I'm not as close with her as I thought I was. So, ooh.
Which I mean, remembering Marianne didn't tell anyone that she has an idol either. Like, so like she can't play an integrity card, but she's not claiming to have integrity. She's just saying like, oh, Mike knows, and I don't. And that's kind of weird.
She might think that she's, Lindsay's number 2 or something. Certainly ahead of Mike out of everyone. He was an Ontaku, so yeah, that might have been a little bit of an eye opener for her.
So from Marianne's perspective, she's told nobody about her idol. Lindsay told Mike, and that's not exactly how it played out, but that's from her perspective. Like, Lindsay told Mike. Why would she tell Mike and not me? Uh-oh.
The most interesting thing is like, when you talk about people who aren't you disseminating your information, your secrets among the group, right? That's typically not a good thing. But it actually worked in Lindsay's favor because there's absolutely no defense out there. If, if they wanted to target her and she loses immunity, she can still use that and no one can stop her. Or 2, she wins immunity and she can save Omer or Romeo if she wants. Yeah. The threat of Lindsay's idol ended up being way more pertinent than Lindsay's idol in the end. And I know that's hindsight thinking, that's fine, but this is one of the few times where like her secrets getting spilled for her accidentally worked for her.
It scared people.
Yeah.
And this should have worked if it wasn't for Marianne being so determined, which we'll get to. I'm a huge fan of. So Jonathan and Mike, they're like, all right, we can't do this. We have to take out Romeo. That is a terrible move, especially for Jonathan. Jonathan, you will lose if you take out Romeo.
Yeah, can we just acknowledge that the 2 people being focused on right now are 2 of, I know we're not in consensus here because I'm straying from the path a little bit, but 2 of at least the bottom 3 people left on the most likely to win the game board.
And Josh, you said Mike was in the can't win group. So even... Yes. You're right too. Like if you're the one who's person, the same thing. Mike wants to get rid of Romeo. Mike can't win from Josh's point of view.
Ridiculous. Because I'm not saying that Jonathan's near the top or anything, but I would put him slightly above Mike. At least I have for the past couple of weeks, like neck and neck.
Sure.
But either way, like they're doing the exact same thing here, which is terrible for both of them.
What's really interesting to me is no one talked about voting out Marianne. And I'm gonna try and read between the lines because no one knows about her idol. But the fact that everyone knows about Mike's idol kept people from voting for Mike, and the fact that Lindsay had an idol and immunity definitely had a buffer role in the majority of people not voting for Omer, right? No one knows about Marianne, and yet people aren't targeting her. So that could, on the one hand, play to her advantage in the end, like, wow, you were so under the radar. Or 2, maybe people really don't think that she can win based on where she's at right now. They're not worried about her.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read that, but I wanted to vocalize it regardless. So maybe Jonathan and Mike should have been targeting Marianne, throwing that out there, because Romeo is the easy, like, teeth has been pulled, not winning the game.
I mean, it's smarter to get rid of Marianne than Romeo.
Agreed.
Agreed. And I think we're going to get into some good discussions later when it comes to our final prediction. So yes. I'm excited to see where you guys land on some of these people.
Yeah. By the way, it would be interesting. What if Mike, getting these mixed signals from Marianne, just goes to Omer and Lindsay and says, Omer, she's trying to vote you out.
Sure.
I thought that's where this was going. I thought we were going to get a real, like, kind of not necessarily a person in the middle, because that makes it sound like that person couldn't decide, but Marianne more being like the person who is basically just trying to make some sort of move happen, because it really actually is best for everyone else remaining in the game, because she's taking out a threat either way. I thought that it was just going to get turned on her last second, and it was going to be her going home.
At first I thought that would happen too, just because she was a little bit wishy-washy with Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So Lindsay wants Jonathan out. Omer wants Jonathan out. They talk, and Lindsay's probably not going to play her idol because she doesn't want it to go back into circulation. Bruh. Are you kidding me? Play the idol, and I don't think this would go back into circulation just because it's a weird idol, the amulet.
And there's 2 others out there still. I mean, I don't know if she necessarily knows that.
She doesn't necessarily know. But let's say it did go back into circulation. Okay, go find it. That the fear of an idol being back in the game shouldn't prevent you from playing the idol in the smart way.
Yeah. And like I'm not going to drill down on this being the worst thing in forever, because we know that when you go to confessionals, you're going to be told to say certain things and give certain reasons for doing things. We all agree that, I mean, Lindsay very likely can't beat Omer. So maybe she's just like, I'm fine if he goes home, if other people want to pull one on me. Like, I'd prefer Omer to stay for the next vote, but like, I'm not going to protect him if everyone else decides to like put a head on their shoulders.
That's possible.
So it's possible.
I think Derek is absolutely right. I think that it's not her preferred result of this tribal, but if it does end up being Omer, I think she's more thinking he needs to go somewhere in the next 3 people. So if it's now, what's the difference between now and 1 vote from now? That at least that's the way that I saw it going down.
Yeah. Now that's not what the edit gives us. And on this podcast, we have to kind of use what the edit gives us. So Knox, if in fact she was overly worried about that idol going back into circulation, folks, if your idol is expiring, play it.
There's no reason not to.
Like, she could have played it on Jonathan or Marianne for all I care.
Just to flex.
You do something.
Like, flex with it.
Show you had the hardware.
You had it. You can show it. You didn't need it, or you did need it. It doesn't matter. But I think the other way, let's say she's fine. She wants to keep Omer in the game, which is what it was presented to us. Well, if you play the idol on Omer, you end up at the final 3 with him. You have, like, I saved him. He would not be here without me on your resume.
Yep.
That's great. So
like, we played the same game. I saved him.
So based on the evidence we have, this is horrendous.
I don't want to say horrendous. I say that it is a slight knock, because I do think that Omer still takes her even if she saves him. So it's a slight bad, but I don't hate it, because Omer needed to go for anyone else to have a chance to win. That is my official stance.
You got a slight frowny face from me, and that's about it.
You are underselling it, but okay. So Marianne, she wants Omer out because he is the biggest threat. Yep, that's fair. And she's like, we can do this. I have the extra vote. And eventually, she talks to Mike and Jonathan about it first, and they're kind of dismissive of the idea. They're like, let's just play it safe. We'll go after Romeo. It'll be great. And she's like, no, because Marianne can't win the game, at least at this point. At this specific point, if Romeo goes out, Marianne can't win. So I think if Romeo did get voted out of here, Marianne loses the game. I have things to say coming into
I don't think so,
predictions.
Okay.
But at this point, let's say tonight, Romeo goes out. Since Marianne didn't make a huge move, I think Marianne's done. I don't think she can win anymore.
I think she's potentially, not for sure or anything, but I think it's close between a finale of her, Mike, and Jonathan.
So she gets Romeo on board, and she does the math. She has an extra vote. They can do a 3-2 split, with Jonathan and Mike sneakily voting for Romeo. And then she and Romeo, with her extra vote, all piling on Omer. And just in case of an idle play, but try and get Omer out, because they have to take Omer out for anyone else to have a chance. And Mike and Jonathan are so dense and obtuse about this whole thing, and Marianne is just getting so frustrated trying to explain math to them. And I get that they're all now malnourished at this point. They're not thinking clearly, but it was so like funny and frustrating to watch. I felt so bad for Marianne watching this.
Yeah, because Marianne's over here doing basic algebra, and meanwhile, like, Captain Fingerpaint's over here. They're deciding that, like, they don't even want to fill in the colors. Like, no, you got to do better.
They're like cavemen trying to build a fire, just like,
I hit rock with rock.
What I wrote down my favorite quote for the first episode was from Mike, I break rock. It was all set up. Perfect.
But I don't know. I really don't understand what they're thinking, like, with this, because like Romeo as the go-to, because their main reasoning here is that they're like, we understand, like, they're basically acknowledging Marianne, but saying, just pushing it down the road. Like, we have plenty of time basically to get rid of Omer. Like, we can do that in a vote or two. It's like, no, you literally only have a vote or 2 to be able to get him out. Why delay this any longer? Like, you don't know if he has some sort of secret idol he hasn't been telling you about that he could play at the next tribal. You don't know if he's going to win immunity at any point here in the future. Take him out now while you can.
He won the reward challenge today. If that had been the immunity challenge, you never know what the challenge is going to be.
Even if you need to split the votes to do it, the people who are non-threats to win the game, need to target the big fish, regardless of the idol at this point. Like let's say Lindsay was available, right, and she doesn't have an idol. Cool, target her. If Mike doesn't have an idol, maybe they should target him. Maybe Lindsay and Omer should have targeted Mike anyway. There are so many things that are happening here that fell victim to complacency, and Marianne was the only one who was like, no, we need to take the shot, otherwise nothing happens. Status quo. And status quo, you lose, I lose.
And, normally, especially me, I frown upon a big move-itis in this game, but Marianne has to make a big move. She needs to show up on people's radar.
Marianne needs to make a big move, and other people need to just be like, it's time to try and make a move. Like maybe people should be going to Lindsay and try to pitch the idea that Omer needs to go. We didn't see it. And maybe it happened, but we didn't see it.
And the one knock that I'll have, and it is the tiniest knock I'll have on Marianne here, is that she really was going for just like the strong arm strategy of basically saying, this is what you're going to do, yada, 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 yada. I'm surprised because it ended up working out in the end, but it didn't seem like it was the type of move that I was expecting to get pulled off by the way that she was talking to people. It's the type of move that I would expect people to just basically hear and then be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it because this is exactly what she wants and I'm not going to play by her rules. So really tiny critique there, but it ended up working out in the end. So who knows?
And I don't mind that from Marianne. Because Mike has been doing that for most of the season. Omer's been subtly doing it.
Jonathan's been doing it.
So like Marianne, I think in a way kind of found her voice. She's like, yeah, no, you guys are 100% wrong here. So I'm going to raise my voice. I'm going to tell you you're wrong. I'm not going to go along with your idiotic plan to go status quo because that does nothing for most of us here.
And if Romeo goes out, she loses. She has to make this happen. And if she goes home in the process, worth it. Because she's trying to win the game.
If you're trying to win the game, Marianne going out right here, I'd have been like, valiant effort. I applaud you. Swing for the fences when the bases are loaded.
Place and try.
Trying to win the game.
Yeah.
Because that's what will probably happen to you. You're probably not going to win Survivor. You should go out swinging, trying to win the game.
Yeah.
So, Tribal Council, it's going to be 3 votes for Omer, 2 for Jonathan, 2 for Romeo. Marianne's plan worked. Omer is sent out of the game. And they're going to go to a new camp just like they did last season. Who cares? Was this the right move? I'll start us off. Resounding yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was the right move.
Yeah, it was the right move for everyone, even if they didn't necessarily think it at the time. I'm mostly talking about Lindsay here.
I'm sad. I loved Omer. I would have loved to like crown him Prince of Survivor, but it just didn't happen. I wish it would have happened. But if you're playing game theory, dude had to go.
Yep, 100%.
There's the door, buddy. Get out of my way.
So every week we ask on Twitter, did the right person go home? And we always see what Twitter has to say. And so let's see what Twitter thinks this week. Josh, what do you got?
Yeah, we actually had a 71% result come in for you. Yes, the right person went home. So pretty lopsided here this week.
Yeah, well, Twitter has been Team Marianne.
Twitter loves Marianne.
Yeah, Twitter's been Team Marianne since day one, so anything that Marianne does and gets her way on is going to be considered a good thing.
But even biases aside,
yeah,
they're right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're right for the wrong reasons, but they're right.
Okay, so let's get into best and worst player of the episode. Derek, who do you got for best player of the episode?
Oh, definitely Jonathan, because he was super self-aware and then stuck with his guns and voted for Romeo. No, it's Marianne. There's no option.
Honestly, before I ask Josh this question, I'm just going to say this is probably one of the easiest ones we've ever had. Josh, who's the best player of the episode?
Don't even need to say anything. Marianne, cool.
It's Marianne by a mile. Let's get into worst player. Derek, who you got?
I have NA. I say that there was no worst player. Because Omer going home was the best for everyone. And honestly, because Marianne could pull off this move on her own, well, not on her own, but, with Romeo finally voted the right way. So that's a plus in his column. Lindsay won immunity. And I don't think Omer going home is bad for her game. And I do think that she was prodded to say like, oh, blah, 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 idol going back in the game.
Okay, and Ryan.
And then Mike and Jonathan both voting for Romeo to just try and play it safe, knowing that Marianne could do this without them and forcing her to play her extra vote in the process. I think that this is an absolute win for everybody left in the game. The only thing that's like kind of annoying for people not named Marianne is that she gets to add a big number to her resume, but that's taking out Omer, who gets the job if he makes it to the final 3. So, NA, no bad players.
Ryan, can you let me and the audience know what the votes were?
So Marianne and Romeo both voted for Omer, with Marianne using her extra vote. Jonathan and Mike voted for Romeo. And then Lindsay and Omer voted for Jonathan.
Okay.
Derek, I made fun of you calling you me because you kind of did what I do on the Rewind series. Is I don't, I look beyond the edit. And you've criticized me for that, so I'm throwing it right back at you.
The difference is I'm not using hindsight bias to gauge who should go home based on a social game. That's the big difference.
Sure.
We are here at the same time.
Sure. I mean, there's a slight difference, but okay, Ryan.
It's not a slight difference. It is a difference. It is a fair difference.
A frowny face emoji of a difference.
Okay.
Josh, worst player of the episode.
So when I was looking at this, I was kind of teetering on having an NA, but I don't think that you can do that here. And there's a reason why I asked what the votes were, specifically because we only had 2 people vote for the right person to go home. That is enough for me to slightly push this onto, I'm going to go with Mike here. I think it's a very close between Mike and Jonathan, just because both of them were so gung-ho on wanting Romeo out of all people. Yes, the best result came through for everyone else remaining in the game, but that's not the result that everyone originally wanted. They wanted to have Romeo go home, and some people also wanted Jonathan to go home, which a lot of people could argue they could also beat in the end. So I'm going to give it to Mike, mostly because he seemed to be the one who was pushing back a little bit more to Marianne. He was the one that was fighting against it a little more when they were one-on-one with each other compared to what Jonathan was doing. So that was the only reason I gave it to Mike instead of Jonathan.
Mike breaks rock.
Mike breaks rock. I'm giving mine to Lindsay. She may have won immunity, but based on the evidence we have, she did not play her idol to save Omer, which she totally could have and should have if she wanted to boost her resume, if she wants to play that way. If the truth is she was fine with Omer going home, I will stand down if that information comes out. I will back down on this. But based on what we have, the way she wanted the game to go, which I think would have worked fine for her, it would have given her possibly a silver bullet in the end to use against Omer. She saved him. But she didn't use it. She looked a little bit foolish. And it's just the idea of like not playing the idol because it might go back into circulation. It's just so dumb. So Lindsay's my worst player of the episode. But if we get more information, I will back down on that. But just saying, based on what we were given, the concrete stuff, the less than 1% of 1% of what we got. So next week we have the finale, Final 5. So this is normally where we talk about who's going next, but we're going to predict the Final 5. How is this going to shake out? But also along on that note, Derek and Josh, you guys have lost your winner pick. So
we'll just roll all this into one, basically.
And then at the end, you reveal who your new winner pick is. So reveal who's going to get 5th, 4th, and then how the final 3 are going to, who gets 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or maybe there'll be a tie. Up to you. Josh, kick us off.
Oh, you're going with me first.
Yep.
All right. So this is how I see it playing out. We still have 2 idols in the game. We have Marianne and we have Mike. This is their last opportunity to be able to play their idols. I think both of them are going to play their idols at, obviously, this time around. Because I don't think either of them are winning immunity. I think that is going to Lindsay because Jonathan can't do a puzzle to save his life. So I think Lindsay is winning immunity. Marianne and Mike play their idols. And Jonathan is going home at 5. Whether or not that's the right decision, I don't know. But that's what's going to end up happening. So we move on to 4. And Fire making. You know what? I'm going to go with the chalk pick of Lindsay once again winning immunity here and securing her spot in the finale, Final Tribal Council. And I think she is going to send... I think she's going to send Mike and Marianne to fire making, where Mike ends up winning and Marianne goes home. And Lindsay is going to face off against Mike and obviously Romeo there at Final Tribal Council. And we're going to get a big old goose egg for Romeo. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close. And I think it's going to be close regardless of who makes it to the end here. But I'm going to go 5 votes for Lindsay, 3 votes for Mike. And Lindsay is going to be the winner of Survivor 42.
All right. Josh is on Team Lindsay. I'll go next. I'm going to go a different route, but we're going to start off the same. Bye-bye, Jonathan. You're done at 5. Obviously, idols. Lindsay will win immunity. Goodbye. All right, easy peasy. The final 4, a little trickier. I am going to say there's going to be a toss-up or an upset, and Lindsay's going to lose. Maybe Marianne wins final 4. That'll be my pick. Marianne's going to win the immunity at the final 4. She is going to send Lindsay and Mike to fire. Mike is going to win. Lindsay gets knocked out at fire making, and I'm basing that based off edit. I just always assume the person with the smallest edit's going home on a BS twist, fire making being that. Happened to Heather last season perfectly. Called it. Didn't exactly call that being the case because who thought Heather was going to go to fire? But that's what I'm going with this time. Lindsay gets taken out by fire. So our final 3 is Marianne, Mike, and Romeo. I think Marianne is going to beat Mike and Romeo. I think Mike will get 2 votes and Marianne will get 6. And Marianne is going to win Survivor 42.
First of all, so my turn, right?
One last thing is I know Romeo is still officially my winner pick. LOL.
So you would switch, but you're stuck.
I would switch to Marianne, but I'm stuck.
And you're saying he's going to get 0 votes, right?
Romeo's going to get 0.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, assuming that you are right with your final 3, I agree with you. However, my order is actually exactly the same as Josh's for the exact same reasons, which is kind of annoying to me. So here's what I can add to that particular discussion. Jonathan is going to go out. And then I have Mike beating Marianne in final fire making because Lindsay wins immunity and sends them. And Lindsay might even step down and defeat Marianne in order to ensure a win over Mike. Either way, I think that Marianne loses a fire making competition. I actually went down and I have who on the jury who I think would vote for Lindsay and who I think would vote for Mike.
Now I can agree with you in some areas.
Chanel, not voting for Mike. Noah's for Romeo. Let's get that out of the way. Chanel, not voting for Mike. Roxroy, that's 100% going to Mike. Tori respects Lindsay's play. Hai respects Lindsay's play, and he's pissed off that Mike voted him out and got turned on him for basically no reason. Drea, good rapport with Lindsay, votes for Lindsay. Omer, obviously Lindsay's number 1. Lindsay. Jonathan, 100% going to Mike. No way. And then Marianne, also respecting Lindsay's game more than Mike's, especially given what happened in this last episode. The split ends up being 2 votes for Mike, 6 votes for Lindsay, assuming that is the final 3. But Ryan, if you were right about the final 3, Marianne's winning. I think it's Lindsay or Marianne's game to lose at this point.
Yeah, unless they both go out, then Mike wins.
Now, what would be more interesting is Marianne and Lindsay, the 2 Taku ladies left on the block. Which one of them wins? You know what? I don't know.
Tough call.
That is a really tough call.
I think Lindsay would win. I think just right now, Lindsay would win. Without much thought, I'd say Lindsay.
Yeah, I would also agree in that situation. I think regardless of who Lindsay would face at the end, I think she beats anyone left in the game. At this point, a lot of things can happen just over the next 2 votes, but where it sits right now, I think that she beats anyone remaining left in the game.
So the 2 of you go from Omer to Lindsay, and I am still on Romeo. Good for me.
we have you going to the final 3.
Yeah.
And he was your second person, right?
Yes, I went from Daniel to Romeo.
Yeah, and both me and Derek are on our 3rd, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Chanel to Omer, Omer to Lindsay.
And then Josh started with Hai, Omer, Lindsay.
So Ryan, you better hope that Romeo makes it to the end. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with 3 like us. Unless something gets fallen down and stuff.
All right. So we kind of already talked about this a little bit. We all said Romeo can't win the game based on the final 5. There's 2 people in this game who cannot win. Who is the second person who cannot win the game? I'll go first. It's Jonathan.
Yeah, it's Jonathan.
I'm sticking with Mike. I don't care. Screw you guys. In a final 3, Mike, Jonathan, and Romeo. People aren't talking about Mike.
People like Mike.
Any sort of I don't care if you like him. Congrats. You'll like him.
It's called a social game, Josh. It's called a social game.
That's one out of 3.
Sure.
One facet of the game. And congrats. Like if the other 2 people absolutely sucked, didn't do anything whatsoever, then
Romeo.
Sure. But if it's Mike, Jonathan, and Romeo in the end, Romeo, I still think gets 0 votes.
Yes. No, I like this exercise. And what are we here for based on speculation?
Yeah.
Chanel, votes for Jonathan.
Yep. She doesn't like Mike.
Yep. Roxroy votes for Mike.
That one could go either way.
That one could go either way.
He got along with both of them. Mike betrayed him. Jonathan did not.
I think in Final Tribal Council, Mike would be able to point that out and earn Roxroy's vote.
That one I think is a 50
maybe
shot.
Tori, I think, goes Mike. High, I think, looking at what he had to go up against, he'd respect Mike's gameplay more. He worked with him more. So I'm going to go edge Mike.
Maybe.
Drea, I think Mike, because Mike had a working relationship, and Jonathan kind of blew up Drea's game at several points.
Drea loves Mike.
Yeah.
On the vote out.
Omer would respect Mike's game more than Jonathan's because Jonathan actively went against Taku's best interest at several times, and him and Lindsay had conversations. Lindsay would go with Mike over Jonathan. They've got no working relationship. And then I guess Marianne, I'm assuming, would go with not Jonathan, but she might vote Jonathan. It's possible. He was smitten with her for a while.
Toss-ups, but I think Mike wins that.
I don't know. Jonathan could take all of Taku, all the Taku votes.
But Taku was frustrated with him, man.
You're right. It's possible.
But they still have a relationship with him that has been formed over the entire season versus, and when you say Omar, Omar worked with him, but Omar just led him around doing everything. So he might be frustrated that Mike's there, not him, when Mike didn't do anything to get
Neither
there.
did Jonathan at that point then, and he's had to drag that dead weight for longer.
Yeah. All I'm saying is it's a little bit more of a toss-up than what you might say. You guys are very firm on obviously it's Jonathan as the.
I am. I can't speak about Derek, but I am certainly.
I'm not going to say I'm 100% positive. I'm going to say that based on the edit, Mike would beat Jonathan. But there are a lot of ifs, ands, and buts in between the 1% of 1% that we get. So I totally admit that Jonathan could beat Mike in a final tribal council. I just don't see it being that likely.
Well, when we get a final three, that's Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo. We'll see who's right.
Stay tuned.
That'd be kind of funny. That would be kind of funny.
There's so many final threes here that would be fun, funny, entertaining, and or cool.
And we're probably going to get the most boring combination, whatever that might be.
If Marianne wins and we have Zach Wurtenberger and Marianne Oketch bookending, the Twitter married couple, right? They're an average Survivor player.
An average Survivor couple. All right. So, that'll be next week. Finale. I'm very excited for that. You can follow us on Twitter at Castaway Pod, on TikTok, Insta, all the fun stuff. Anything else, guys?
Got nothing.
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool. I'm very excited. We'll see how this plays out. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.